Welcome back, fellow exhausted wanderer of the mind. If you're here, you're probably horizontal, mildly anxious, and deeply suspicious of silence. Perfect. You've come to the right place. Tonight, we're not going to pretend the world makes sense. We're not going to chase productivity or solve the mystery of your inbox. We're going to lie here together in the glorious absurdity of existence and let philosophy do what melatonin couldn't. Knock you out with mildly unsettling ideas wrapped in cozy existential despair. So grab your blanket, lower your expectations, and let's begin with a tale about ships, identity, and why you're never really the same person who started brushing their teeth 10 minutes ago. Let's begin where many philosophers do, with a thought experiment that sounds oddly like the start of a bedtime story. Meet the ship of Theseus, a classic paradox from ancient Greek philosophy that asks a deceptively simple question. If you replace every single part of a ship, piece by piece, is it still the same ship? It's a favourite among thinkers from Plato to Locke to modern identity theorists, because it messes with our intuition about what it means to stay the same when everything changes. So tonight, we board this philosophical vessel, not to find answers, but to drift gently into the strange waters of identity, change, and why your brain might be a bit like a haunted IKEA. Let's say you're a ship. No, not metaphorically. Let's just dive into it. You are a literal, wooden, wave-battered vessel, with a name like the noble windfish, or something equally heroic. You've been sailing the seas doing ship things, transporting olives, accidentally contributing to colonialism, getting carved into tourist magnets. But time, my friend, is a splintery bastard. Eventually, the boards rot, the ropes fray, the anchor rusts. So naturally, people replace your parts. One plank here, a mast there. Before you know it, nothing original remains. You've been entirely rebuilt. So here's the kicker. Are you still the same ship? Now let's make it weirder. Some ambitious philosopher, probably named Theophilus or Chad, takes all your old parts and builds another ship. It looks like you. It creaks like you. Heck, it even smells like you. Mildew and regret. Which one is really you? And now you're lying in bed asking yourself, wait, am I the ship? Yes. Yes, you are. Every 7 years, almost every cell in your body is replaced. Your bones, regenerated. Your brain, rewired. Your opinions on pineapple pizza, probably changed twice. You're not who you were last year. You're barely who you were this morning. So, who the hell are you? Are you the memories? The personality? The awkward kid from 6th grade still haunting your internal monologue? Or are you just the process, the ongoing patchwork of thoughts, feelings, scars, and mild food intolerances? Maybe, just maybe, identity isn't about staying the same. Maybe it's about motion. Not the planks, but the sailing. Not the parts, but the journey. Here's the beautiful disaster of it all. Change doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're becoming. You are not a puzzle missing pieces. You are a lava lamp of consciousness, fluid, weird, glowing in the dark. And that's kind of wonderful. You've got versions of yourself tucked into memory drawers you never open. The kid who wanted to be an astronaut. The teenager who swore they'd never be like their parents, and now owns the same brand of vacuum. The college you who believed in big, reckless dreams, and drank way too much boxed wine. And then there are the more recent versions. The you who cried in a grocery store parking lot. The one who nailed that presentation even though your heart was doing drum solos. The one who apologized first. The one who didn't. All of them are you. None of them are all of you. You're a timeline with attitude, a paradox in pajamas, a personal evolution exhibit still under construction. Some nights, the changes feel like progress. Other nights, like loss. But let me tell you, grief and growth are siblings who share a room. One rearranges the furniture. The other writes emo poetry about it. So if today felt off, if you don't recognize the person who yelled at the coffee machine or cried during a dog food commercial, that's okay. That's just a new plank being nailed into place. You're still you, even if you're not the same ship, even if you sometimes miss the old you, even if you don't know who the new one is yet. Identity isn't a snapshot. It's a slideshow with bad lighting and occasional typos, but it's yours. Beautifully inconsistent, laughably sincere, a masterpiece that occasionally eats cereal for dinner. And just for fun, imagine if you were literally made of old parts, like a junk drawer Frankenstein. Ah yes, this is my 2011 optimism, grafted to my 2017 trust issues. Doesn't sound elegant, does it? But guess what? It's relatable. That weird combination, that's your ship. Creaky, haunted, occasionally majestic. We're all held together by weird glue. Memories, habits, Spotify playlists we don't talk about. You're not meant to be consistent. You're meant to be curious. So, tonight, as your ship rocks gently in the waves of consciousness and insomnia, ask yourself this: what parts of you have changed without you even noticing? Which pieces were swapped when you weren't looking? And isn't it kind of magical that you're still afloat? No one's asking you to be the ship you once were, or to fully become the one you're building toward. Just keep sailing. That's all. Now let the thought of your ever-evolving identity rock you to sleep, like philosophical ASMR. Because the ocean doesn't need you to know who you are. It just needs you to keep floating. Tonight, we drift into the Tao. Not the self-help book from your yoga instructor's coffee table, Tao, but the ancient Chinese philosophy of Taoism, passed down from Laozi through centuries of poets, mystics, and people who understood that the universe isn't a machine to control. It's a river to float. At the heart of Taoism is a concept called Wu Wei. It means non-doing or effortless action. But don't let the name fool you. Wu Wei isn't about laziness. It's about alignment, about not fighting the current, about realizing that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is absolutely nothing. So tonight we don't charge, we don't conquer, we let go. Because what if the best way to control life was to stop trying? Have you ever noticed how hard everything gets when you force it? Trying to sleep, trying to be happy, trying to impress someone on a first date while your shirt slowly betrays you with sweat patches. Yeah, same energy. Taoism whispers stop, not forever. Just for long enough to notice that maybe the world doesn't need your white-knuckled grip. Maybe it unfolds on its own. The Tao is the way, the flow, the thing behind the thing. You don't chase it, you align with it, like a surfer on a wave, or a cat knowing exactly where to nap. So what does Wu Wei look like in real life? It's the conversation that clicks because you're not trying to be clever. It's the work that flows because you stopped obsessing over being perfect. It's the breath you take that suddenly makes the rest of your body say, oh, right, that. Non-doing doesn't mean never doing. It means not forcing, not struggling upstream just because you think you should. You're allowed to let go. You're allowed to pause. You're allowed to nap your way into wisdom. The world doesn't always reward effort with results. Sometimes it rewards stillness with clarity. So tonight, instead of pushing harder, try this. Float. Breathe. Stop trying to be impressive. Just be. The Tao isn't a goal. It's what you're already part of. It's the way the clouds move when you're not looking. The way your heartbeat slows when you stop arguing with yourself. You don't need to earn rest. You don't need to justify your existence. You don't need to fight the river. You're already in it. So lie back, let it carry you, and trust just for a moment that doing nothing might be exactly what you need. Let's move to the ever-flickering world of Heraclitus, the Greek philosopher, who famously proclaimed that everything in existence is in constant flux. His most enduring idea, the one that continues to ripple through the ages, is simple but profound. You can't step into the same river twice. The river flows forward, always different, and by the time your foot touches the water again, not only has the river changed, but so have you. The universe is a living current, and we are caught in its ceaseless motion. Heraclitus did not view change as a threat or a breakdown in the system. To him, change was the system. He chose fire as the perfect symbol of this eternal transformation, not because fire holds its shape, but because it never does. Fire consumes, transforms, flickers, and renews. It doesn't preserve, it reshapes. So tonight, consider that your mind too is a fire. Each evening, you go to bed carrying a different constellation of thoughts, memories, regrets, and quiet hopes than the version of you who woke up this morning. You are not the same person who brushed their teeth, spilled coffee on their shirt, or winced at an awkward memory just a few hours ago. And that realization, strange as it may be, is not something to resist. It is something to embrace. We're often taught to think of stability as strength. Consistency is prized. Change, on the other hand, is framed as loss, as something to fear or resist. But Heraclitus would offer a dry, knowing smile at that idea, and he'd likely remind us that resistance to change is as futile as trying to bottle a flame. Change is not the problem. Our clinging to permanence is. That low, persistent flicker in your chest, the one that sometimes feels like fear or restlessness, isn't a flaw. It's a spark, a sign that you're still burning, still evolving, still responding to the winds of the world around you. The flame might roar some days and barely whisper on others, but it's still there, alive and loyal. To embrace Heraclitus's vision of the world is to surrender, not in defeat, but in understanding. When you change your opinion, when your style shifts, when your friendships fade or deepen, you're not betraying some essential self. You're honoring your nature as a being in motion. You are not a fixed point. You are a pattern of flame, a beautiful, impermanent shape drawn in heat and time. We love to categorize ourselves, to make lists, build boxes, and organize our identities like files in a cabinet. But what if you're not a cabinet at all? What if you're a bonfire? Glorious, unpredictable, and constantly generating warmth even as you discard yesterday's fuel? Some days you may feel like a blaze, fueled by clarity, purpose, or caffeine. Other days you might feel more like embers, quiet, flickering at the edge of exhaustion. But both are fire, both are valid, and neither version is lesser than the other. You don't have to explain why you've shifted, why you've let go of something that once defined you, or why you no longer fit into the neat categories you once built around yourself. You've outgrown them, and that's not failure, that's fire. In Heraclitus's world, there are no final forms, no perfect versions of you frozen in time. There is only motion, only the you who is right now, shaped by everything you've burned through and everything you've yet to ignite. When you let go of what no longer serves you, when you acknowledge that you're changing, sometimes painfully, sometimes beautifully, you don't lose yourself. You rediscover yourself. Again and again, you peel away the ash and find the embers underneath, waiting to rise. The fire you carry is not a liability. It's your inheritance. It's the proof that you're still becoming. Let it crackle. Let it breathe. Let it shape the next version of you, even if you don't know exactly who that is yet. You are the flame, not the thing the flame lights, and that means you get to keep moving. Let's try shrink down to insect scale and drift into the mind of a Stoic emperor, Marcus Aurelius. He wasn't just a ruler. He was a journaler, a thinker, and a man quietly scribbling notes to himself while Rome tried to crumble around him. In his meditations, Marcus often zoomed way, way out until his problems, his power, even his life looked tiny against the stars. It's a humbling perspective, and strangely, it's comforting. So let's get small. Let's imagine time from the perspective of an ant. To the ant, your shoe is a continent, a blade of grass, a skyscraper, a minute, an epoch. When you're that tiny, everything looms large, every moment stretches into eternity. But when you're the one standing up, looking down, it's just a step. Now flip it, zoom out from your own life. Zoom way, way out. You are a blink, but you are the blink. Marcus Aurelius believed that most of our suffering comes not from events themselves, but from how we interpret them. He wrote about zooming out, about putting your problems in cosmic perspective. That deadline, that awkward conversation, that existential dread, all just dust motes drifting in a sunbeam, as seen from Saturn. Time, when viewed up close, is jagged and overwhelming, but from a cosmic height, it smooths out. It becomes gentle, manageable, almost soft. Imagine you're looking back at your life from 1,000 years in the future. What will matter then? What won't? Who will remember that one thing you said wrong in a meeting? No one. Not even you. And that's not sad, it's freeing. Because when nothing matters too much, everything matters just enough. You get to choose what matters to you. That's stoicism. Not apathy, but clarity. The courage to say, this is worth my peace, and this is not. You are allowed to put things down. You are allowed to walk away from urgency. You are allowed to be small in the best way. Like the ant, you're a part of something immense. Like Marcus, you are a speck on a speck orbiting a burning speck in a universe of specks. And yet here you are, breathing, thinking, caring. The universe didn't ask for you to show up, but you did. And that means you get to decide how you meet it, panicked, clinging, anxious, or aware, light, even amused by your own insignificance. Marcus knew he couldn't control time, but he could control how he lived in it. So can you. Let's continue with Descend into Darkness, but not just any darkness. We're going deep into Plato's cave, one of the most famous allegories in all of Western philosophy. Originally described in the Republic, Plato's cave isn't about spelunking. It's about illusion, awakening, and what happens when you realize the reality you've been living in might not be reality at all. In the allegory, prisoners are chained inside a cave. They've been there since birth, staring at a blank wall. Behind them burns a fire, and between the fire and the prisoners are puppeteers casting shadows onto the wall. These shadows are all the prisoners have ever seen. To them, the shadows are reality. Then one prisoner escapes. At first, the light of the fire hurts, and when he steps outside the cave for the first time, the sun nearly blinds him. But eventually, he sees, he understands. The world is so much more than shadows, and the truth, though uncomfortable, is beautiful. He goes back to tell the others, but they're not interested. They think he's gone mad. This story isn't about ancient Greece, it's about you. It's about now, because every one of us lives in a cave of some kind. Whether it's a worldview we inherited, a story we've always believed about ourselves, or a media feed that filters the world down to flickering impressions. Most days we take shadows as fact. We mistake curated versions of life on screens, in mirrors, in expectations for the real thing. We stay chained by comfort, familiarity, and fear. And deep down, we suspect there might be more, but stepping outside is terrifying. Leaving the cave doesn't mean you suddenly know everything. It means you're willing to admit you didn't. It means trading certainty for curiosity, illusion for truth, and comfort for clarity. It also means loneliness, because when you start seeing the world differently, you'll find that not everyone wants to see it with you. Some people will cling to their shadows, some will scoff, others will turn away. And that's okay. You were them once too. Waking up is hard, but it's not about knowing more. It's about being more awake to what's real, to pain, to wonder, to yourself. Maybe tonight is the night your cave cracks open a little. Maybe you've started to notice the flicker in the corner, the way the shadow doesn't quite line up with the thing casting it. Maybe something in you suspects that the story you've been told about yourself, too much, not enough, always behind, isn't the truth, but the wall. The first step isn't to run toward the sun. It's just to look around, ask questions, be curious, let your eyes adjust slowly. You don't need to rush out of the cave, but you do need to stop pretending the shadows are all there is. Tonight, we continue journey into one of the most liberating and unsettling ideas in Buddhist philosophy, the concept of anatta, or non-self. At its core, this philosophy suggests that the thing we call the self, our thoughts, memories, opinions, even our sense of identity, is not a solid, permanent thing at all. It's more like a performance, a shifting, flickering process that we mistake for a person. The voice in your head? It's not who you are. It's just noise, a weather pattern, a soap opera rerun with slightly different costumes. It has dramatic lighting, strong opinions, and no sense of timing. In Buddhist teachings, thoughts are not the enemy, but they're also not the king. You don't have to obey them. You don't have to believe them. You can notice a thought, nod at it, like an old acquaintance in a grocery store, and keep walking. You're not obligated to invite every mental impulse in for coffee and an existential chat. Most of us live as if we are our thoughts. I'm anxious, I'm angry, I'm a failure. We wrap those ideas around us like wet blankets and forget that thoughts are just mental events, not facts. Just because a thought pops up doesn't mean it's true, or helpful, or worth following. It's just passing through, like a radio station playing a song you didn't request and don't particularly like. Sometimes your thoughts lie. They catastrophize. They replay that awkward thing you said 5 years ago, like it's a greatest hit. They predict doom. They narrate your life with all the flair of a Shakespearean tragedy performed by caffeine-deprived interns. What if you didn't have to argue with your thoughts tonight? What if you could let them drift by like clouds? No need to chase or capture or correct them. Just notice. You are the sky. The thoughts are just the weather. Some days, a light drizzle. Some days, a full-blown hurricane. But none of them define the sky. They only pass through it. This is not about erasing your identity. It's about loosening the grip of the inner narrator who insists on telling you who you are in every waking moment. The voice that says you're not doing enough, that you messed up, that you're behind, that you should be somewhere else, someone else by now. That voice is loud, but it's not the whole story. In fact, it's not a story you have to keep reading. Beneath the noise is something quieter, something spacious, something that just is. A witnessing presence that doesn't try to fix everything or have a witty response. It just watches, patiently, kindly, without judgment. You don't need to believe every thought that walks into your mind wearing confidence like a suit. You don't have to follow every storyline. You can let go. You can sit back and watch the show without getting on stage. Try this. The next time a thought declares itself, you're failing. Pause. Ask, is this thought useful? Not true, not moral, just useful. Does this thought help me grow, help me rest, help me become more kind, more curious, more free? If the answer is no, let it go. Don't fight it, don't argue, just let it pass. Like background music in an elevator, you're about to leave. You are not your thoughts, you are the awareness that sees them. And that awareness, it doesn't need to win. It doesn't need to be perfect. It only needs to notice. The mind will wander. It's what minds do. It will offer up strange ideas, half-formed worries, emotional reruns, and outdated playlists of insecurity. Let it. You can notice each thought the way you'd notice a bird flying past your window. Interesting, perhaps even beautiful or annoying, but never something you need to catch. You are the one behind the eyes, the one who observes, who witnesses, who endures, and that is enough. So tonight, let the mind chatter. Let the narrator ramble. Let the weather roll across your sky. And you? You just watch. You are still here. You always were. And you don't have to be anything else. Let's turn to a question that has probably kept more people up at night than caffeine or heartbreak combined. What's the meaning of all this? Existentialist thinkers, Jean-Paul Sartre, Albert Camus, Simone de Beauvoir, and their velvet-draped philosophical kin, stared directly into the void and didn't blink. They heard the silence of the universe and chose not to fill it with false promises. No cosmic guarantees, no golden rulebook, no big bearded sky planner handing out reasons and rewards. Just space and us. What they found wasn't despair, it was freedom. Imagine this. You're dropped into a maze with no map, no rules, and no clear goal. At first panic, then possibility. If nothing is handed to you, then everything you do becomes a kind of authorship. You get to decide what matters. You write the map as you walk. Existentialism isn't about giving up. It's about stepping up. It says, the absence of meaning isn't a hole to fall into. It's a canvas. Blank, wide, terrifying, beautiful. Sartre called it existence precedes essence. You exist first, then you define yourself through action. You aren't born with a purpose, you construct one, brick by brick, choice by choice, sandwich by sandwich. That's a heavy load. No wonder it keeps us up at night, but it's also intimate, empowering even. It places the power and the absurd responsibility right in your lap. Maybe today you didn't climb a mountain. Maybe you didn't live your truth or become your best self. Maybe you just did the dishes, called a friend, didn't rage quit reality. That counts. In fact, that might be the purest form of meaning making there is. Choosing presence when distraction is easier. Choosing effort in a world that lets you coast. Camus gave us Sisyphus, the guy forever rolling a boulder up a hill. A pointless task on the surface, an absurd punishment. But Camus said, imagine Sisyphus smiling. Because when you accept the absurd, when you stop demanding that the universe makes sense, you get to make your own sense. And the hill, it becomes your own weird personal treadmill of dignity. And so maybe your boulder isn't a grand legacy or a career or some internet shiny life milestone. Maybe it's walking your dog. Maybe it's finishing a crossword. Maybe it's holding space for someone else's grief. That's the thing existentialism rarely gets credit for. It doesn't dismiss the small stuff. It exalts it. When the universe shrugs, you can still choose to care. Not because it's required, but because you decided to. Meaning, according to these thinkers, isn't found. It's forged, hammered out in tiny acts of resistance against indifference. Some nights, that resistance looks like poetry. Other nights, it looks like laundry. So what does it mean to live meaningfully in a meaningless universe? It means making a sandwich, not as a metaphor, as an act of defiance. It means taking responsibility for your freedom. That's the paradox. You are radically free, but that freedom comes with weight. You're the author of your actions. You don't get to blame the universe for not handing you a plot, but you also don't have to solve the universe. You just have to show up for your scene. If you're tired tonight, if you're overwhelmed by all the things you haven't figured out, all the paths you didn't take, remember this. You're allowed to write your story in pencil. You're allowed to cross things out. You're allowed to change the ending halfway through. Existentialism doesn't promise comfort. It promises honesty, and in that honesty, it gives you power to name what matters, to step into the absurd, and to smile anyway. No one's watching? Great. That means no one can stop you. Create a moment. Care deeply. Get weird with it. You are not a side character in someone else's story. You are the story. So go on. Push the boulder. Laugh if you can. Cry if you need to. But keep pushing. Not because it will get you anywhere, but because you're the one who decided to. And that, in the end, is enough to keep the stars burning a little brighter for one more night. You know that person in the mirror? Yeah, that's just the costume. Welcome to the shifting funhouse of identity. Tonight we let philosophy hold up its warped mirror to the concept of the self and question whether that person you've been polishing, defending, Instagramming, and occasionally apologizing for actually exists in the way you think. This isn't just a philosophical quirk, it's a challenge that spans cultures and centuries. The French psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan talked about the mirror stage, a moment when a child sees their reflection and identifies with it, believing the external image is who they are. But that recognition, it's a trap. It suggests a solid, whole self. And according to Lacan, that illusion never really goes away. Eastern philosophies like Buddhism have been side-eyeing the concept of the self for thousands of years. They remind us that the ego is slippery, that what we think of as me is often just a bundle of habits, memories and projections strung together with duct tape and denial. So let's talk about you. You're not a fixed identity. You're a story being rewritten in real time. And the narrator? Wildly unreliable. You think you're consistent because memory is selective, because you remember the version of yourself that fits the plots you're trying to tell. But your brain edits the past like a chaotic film director. Reshoots, deleted scenes, alternate endings. You look at the mirror and see you, but that reflection is 3 seconds behind reality, and your mind has already slapped a whole personality on it. We curate our identities like art galleries, carefully arranged, lighting adjusted, labels printed, but in the back room, it's chaos. There are parts of you that don't match the display, thoughts you'd never post, feelings you barely admit to yourself. And yet, every day, we wake up and reapply the costume, the mask, the voice, the posture. We perform the me we think the world expects, or the me we think we have to be to survive. But what happens if we stop performing? What if you're not your job title, your childhood nickname, or the trauma you over-identified with in therapy? What if you're not even the name printed on your coffee cup this morning? You are more than your reflection, more than your role, more than your brand. You are the awareness watching the mirror flicker. And here's the twist. Everyone else is doing the same thing, trying to be someone, trying to hold it together. So much of what we call personality is just defense mechanisms in a nice shirt. Lacan would say the self is a construct. Buddhism would say it's an illusion. Neuroscience would say it's a network of firing patterns trying to hold shape. And you might just say it's exhausting. But here's the hope buried inside the confusion. If the self is a story, then it's a story you can revise. You're not trapped by your past drafts. You can pivot, soften, delete a few characters, add new plot lines, rewrite your voice. Let's not forget the philosopher David Hume, who once famously declared he could never find his self in experience. Only a bundle of perceptions flashing in and out of awareness. No stable soul, no hard centre, just flickers. In our modern lives, we often treat identity like a resume, a list of qualities, achievements, traumas, political affiliations, a clean pitch deck for the person we hope to be seen as. But the truth is messier. It always is. We change based on context. You're one version of yourself at work, another with friends, Another when you're alone at night, reheating leftovers and overthinking that one text message. None of these are false, but none are complete either. Social media only intensifies this fragmentation. Every post is a brushstroke in the painting of your online self, a self trimmed for digestibility, curated for applause. But does the applause echo when you're alone? Does the painting hold up when no one's looking? Here's where philosophy steps in, not to shame us for performing, but to offer an escape hatch. If the self is a shifting act, maybe we can stop clinging so tightly. Maybe we can laugh at the absurdity. Maybe we can be kind to ourselves when the role slips, the mask cracks, or the costume feels tight. Because real identity isn't in the performance, it's in the pauses, the silent moments when you forget to be anyone, when you're just there, breathing, not trying to impress or protect, just being. And maybe, just maybe, that's closer to the truth. The mirror isn't the truth, it's just the cover art. And the real you, still being written, so take a breath, let the performance rest. You don't have to be anyone tonight. You already are. Let's talk about absurdism, a philosophy that doesn't try to hide how weird and unfriendly the universe can be. It was Albert Camus who gave absurdism its most memorable form, arguing that life's lack of inherent meaning wasn't something to fix or fear, but something to live through. Not with resignation, but with rebellion. Camus didn't call for despair, he called for defiance. We are creatures wired to search for meaning, he said, but we're dropped into a world that refuses to supply one. And that gap, the yearning for purpose in a universe that offers only silence, is what Camus called the absurd. His novel The Stranger gives us Meursault, a man who reacts to life's supposed tragedies and milestones with chilling indifference. His detachment isn't cruelty, it's honesty. He's not pretending. He simply refuses to lie to himself about a system that doesn't make sense. And weirdly, that makes him more real. So what does that mean for you, lying here, wondering if your life is supposed to add up to something? It means this: you're not wrong to look around and feel like the rules don't quite apply, that no one handed you a script, that maybe everyone else is pretending a little too. There's a moment, a sharp little existential paper cut, when you realise you're not the main character in the story of the universe. The sky doesn't pause for your big revelations. The subway doors don't open just because you're late and having an emotional breakthrough. The moon didn't rise tonight to comfort you. It's just there. And weirdly, there's freedom in that. When you stop trying to bend the world into a coherent story, you're free to start writing your own. When you accept that things won't always feel fair or poetic or purposeful, you can find a kind of clarity. You don't have to be the hero. You don't need a plot twist. You just need to show up. Even when the script is missing. Even when the stage is falling apart. Even when the audience walked out halfway through Act 2. Existence isn't waiting for you to justify it. And you? You don't have to justify yourself to existence. Maybe you don't feel at home in the world. Maybe it feels like it was built for someone else. Someone with more charisma, more certainty, better shoes. But here you are anyway. Uninvited, unexplained, undeniably present. And that's kind of the point. In absurdism, rebellion isn't overthrowing the universe. It's showing up in spite of it. Laughing when it's inappropriate, loving when it's illogical, dancing when the music cuts out. Camus said, we must imagine Sisyphus happy. The man cursed to push a rock up a hill for eternity doesn't break. He doesn't scream at the sky, he just shrugs, grips the boulder, and starts again. Why? Because the act of pushing becomes a kind of defiance, a no whispered against the silence, a choice to live without illusions and to keep living anyway. You don't have to make sense, you don't have to fit, you just have to be. The world wasn't made for you, but you're in it anyway. And that's more than enough to make your presence matter. Because here's the twist. Absurdism offers, even if the universe is silent, you can still speak. Even if it's cold, you can still warm someone else's hands. Even if nothing lasts, it doesn't mean it wasn't worth doing. The point isn't permanence, it's participation. So go ahead. Keep painting even if it fades. Keep singing even if no one claps. Keep walking even if you don't know where the path leads. Because your action, your motion, your refusal to fold into nothingness, that's the resistance. Absurdism doesn't ask for optimism. It asks for guts. It doesn't promise reward. It promises the dignity of continuing anyway. So maybe tonight you light a candle that no God will see. Maybe you laugh at a joke no one else hears. Maybe you feel strange and lost and unsure and still choose to keep going. Because even in a world that wasn't made for you, you can still make things, still build, still love, still live. And that, in the face of all this absurdity, is the most rebellious thing you can do. Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote that we are condemned to be free, not blessed, not gifted, condemned. That's existentialism in its rawest form. You alone, with infinite freedom and no pre-written guidebook, no celestial GPS, no save points, that freedom is a double-edged sword. On one side, you have the intoxicating power to shape your life. On the other, you carry the haunting weight of every door you never opened, every version of you that never got to live. We like to think of our lives as stories with clear plots and wise authors, but really, it's closer to a choose-your-own adventure, where every choice slams another door shut. Every yes is 100 no's. Every path taken is a funeral for 1,000 alternate selves. You didn't move to that city. You didn't stay in that relationship. You didn't become an architect or a chef or a mildly eccentric beekeeper in the countryside. And somewhere in the back of your mind, those unlived lives tug at your shirt like restless ghosts. This isn't just poetic, it's existential reality. Sartre believed we're not born with a fixed essence. We create ourselves through actions. You're not a finished character. You're the sum of your decisions. And that includes the ones you didn't make. So what does that mean for you, lying in the dark with old questions flickering behind your eyelids? It means the version of you that exists right now is here because of a million tiny choices. Some deliberate, some random, some you barely remember making. It also means the weight you feel, the quiet ache of what if, isn't weakness. It's a side effect of freedom. And honestly, it's pretty noble. To be human is to be fractured by possibility. Sometimes we romanticize the roads not taken. We assume the path we didn't choose would have been better, shinier, less awkward and painful. But maybe that's just the mind trying to outsource regret, to reframe uncertainty as lost perfection. It's not. It's just one of a billion ways things could have gone sideways. And while we're being honest, you didn't miss your one big chance. That's a myth. Most lives aren't shaped by a single grand decision. They're shaped by small repeated acts, tiny loyalties, daily courage, the things no one applauds. It's easy to see freedom as a burden. It can be crushing to realize that no one else is driving. But there's beauty in that too. You can still change lanes. You can make a U-turn. You can stop at a weird roadside diner and rewrite the plot. Yes, you've lost some versions of yourself, but you've also protected this one. The you that made it through. The you that chose, however imperfectly, to keep going. There's a quiet kind of heroism in that. Sartre didn't offer comfort. He offered clarity. You're free, and you're responsible for what you do with that freedom. But you're not alone in the struggle. Everyone is choosing in the dark. Everyone is haunted. Everyone wonders what would have happened if they'd gone left instead of right. And still, we choose. Tonight, if your mind wanders to the people you didn't become, say hi. Thank them. Then let them go. You're not defined by absence. You're defined by presence, by the fact that you're still here, still shaping something out of the mess, still capable of surprise. That's existentialism at its most compassionate. You don't need a reason to be. You just are. And that's enough to start again. So take one more breath and know this. The story isn't over, not even close. There's a strange little corner of philosophy called phenomenology. It doesn't ask what time is, it asks how we experience time. And that's a completely different beast. Philosophers like Edmund Husserl and later Maurice Merleau-Ponty weren't interested in clocks. They were interested in the feeling of waiting, the strange elasticity of moments, how an hour in traffic can feel longer than an entire weekend, how a scent can pull you back to childhood faster than a calendar ever could. Because time, phenomenologically speaking, is subjective. It's not the ticking of seconds. It's the weight of them, the way they land inside you. Imagine time as a loaf of bread. Bear with me. Some slices are fresh. You can taste them. You're living them right now. These are the minutes you're aware of, the ones sliding through your fingers as you scroll, or think, or try not to think. Some slices are stale. That's the past. Crumbly, maybe even mouldy, but still there. Still part of the loaf. You don't eat those, but you keep them anyway, because they remind you of where the loaf's been. And then there's toast, burnt, irreversible. You didn't mean to let it sit that long, but now it's blackened, brittle. That's regret. And it's still technically edible, but it tastes like a mischance. Phenomenology reminds us that we carry time differently, depending on our mood, our memory, our meaning-making habits. 1 minute of joy flies, 1 minute of dread crawls. A whole year can vanish into routine, and a single night can tattoo itself into your mind forever. And then there's the future, the part of the loaf we haven't sliced yet. We keep guessing how thick to cut it. We imagine flavours. We worry if there will be enough. But the knife is always in your hand. When we can't sleep, it's often because we're choking on time. Too much past in our throat. Too much future in our lungs. We feel the clock pressing down like a migraine we can't medicate. And what makes it worse is the cultural lie that time must always be used. Productivity, progress, hustle. Every second must be measured in tasks completed, milestones reached, self-improved. But the truth is time isn't a spreadsheet, it's a song. Sometimes you hum it, sometimes it plays loudly, and sometimes it fades into the background while you wash dishes and try not to cry. Phenomenology doesn't ask you to optimize time. It asks you to notice it, to let it stretch and shrink and blur, to pay attention to the rhythms inside your own breath rather than someone else's stopwatch. You don't have to capture time. You're not falling behind, you're just baking. You're allowed to have burnt edges, to waste a morning, to spend an afternoon staring out the window like you're waiting for a revelation, even if one never arrives. Because even in the quietest moments, the loaf is still rising. You're still here. And here's something else phenomenology tells us. Memory isn't just a scrapbook. It's a place you live. The past doesn't sit quietly in a box. It leaks into your senses, colours your moods, sneaks into your dreams. The smell of a bookstore, the glint of winter sunlight on tile, the sound of someone humming a song you once loved. All of it is time, knocking on the door from inside your mind. And what about anticipation? That's a time too. The way your chest feels before a first date, the buzz in your fingers before a big decision, the terror before you say something honest. That's time too, not as measurement but as texture. It stretches your present into the shape of your fears and hopes. Time is not linear, it's layered, folded, interlaced. You're not moving through time, you're soaking in it. And like bread, it gets messy, it crumbles. Sometimes it's undercooked, sometimes it smells like home. You've been taught to fear wasted time. But what if time isn't something to waste? What if it's just something to be inside of, fully, awkwardly, honestly. What if a quiet hour on the floor, feeling everything and nothing, was exactly what that slice needed to become? Maybe the point isn't to slice it faster. Maybe the point is to taste it while it's still warm. So stop measuring every moment. Start noticing them. The bread is yours. And you, miraculous baker, are still here. Crumbs, cracks, chaos and all. Let's imagine this. You stub your toe, scroll the headlines, feel the absurd weight of everything, and suddenly remember, there is no cosmic referee watching you struggle. No divine point system. No glowing scoreboard in the sky tallying up your virtuous moments with gold stars. And definitely no booming voice from the clouds saying, "Nice job on the recycling." This is the world of ethics without God. Philosophers have wrestled with this for centuries. How to be good when there's no divine audience. When right and wrong don't come pre-packaged in commandments or cosmic consequences. When, as Nietzsche put it, God is dead, and morality doesn't have a skyhook to dangle from. But that doesn't mean we're lost. It means we've been handed the terrifying freedom to create meaning ourselves. Welcome to secular morality, where your choices matter because you say they do. Let's set the stage. There's no divine judge, no glowing afterlife Yelp review, no eternal spreadsheet keeping track of your good and bad behaviour like a moral accountant with anxiety issues. This is what philosophers call moral realism without metaphysics, or more dramatically, ethics without God. For thousands of years, religion offered a scaffolding for morality, commandments, karma, cosmic justice. But take that away, and the question gets louder. Why be good? Who's watching? Why recycle your cardboard or hold the elevator for a stranger if the universe couldn't care less either way? Enter existentialism, humanism, and moral philosophy as a solo act. If no divine eye is tracking your deeds, that doesn't mean anything goes. It means everything counts more, because now morality isn't about pleasing a cosmic parent. It's about choosing what kind of person you want to be when no one is grading you. Jean-Paul Sartre argued that we create our values through our actions, not from holy texts, not from tradition, from ourselves, which is thrilling and horrifying because it means we're responsible for giving our lives shape, not borrowing meaning from someone else's blueprint. You don't recycle because a deity demands it. You recycle because this world, messed up as it is the only one we've got. You help others not because you'll be rewarded with cloud real estate in the afterlife, but because you know what it's like to suffer and you want to soften someone else's pain. There's a kind of bleak, beautiful honesty to this approach. Friedrich Nietzsche, who basically invented the mood of wearing all black and sighing dramatically, declared, "God is dead," but not to shock you. He meant that when traditional religious morality collapses, it leaves behind a vacuum, a moral void. And what you do in that void defines you. You could become a nihilist, shrug at everything, refuse to care. Plenty of people do. But even that is a choice. Even that has consequences. Because meaning, once unmoored from theology, doesn't vanish. It becomes portable. It travels with you. In your actions, in your ethics, in your ability to look at an unfair, uncaring universe, and still decide to show up with compassion. This kind of secular morality doesn't pretend to be perfect. It's not about purity. It's about presence, about asking moment to moment, what kind of world am I helping make with this choice? There's no divine report card, no guaranteed redemption arc, just you and the echo of your decisions. When you comfort a friend, when you tell the truth, when you choose patience instead of judgment, you're not fulfilling someone else's law. You're writing your own. That's the challenge of living without a moral safety net. And the reward, you get to decide what matters. And then you have to live like it does. So no, maybe there's no eternal punishment waiting for littering or ghosting your group chat. But maybe, just maybe, you do those things anyway. Not because the universe demands it, but because you do. You are the author now, and even in the void, your words can still create light. Let's begin with a strange truth from the depths of absurdist philosophy. The universe doesn't care. It doesn't hand out purpose or explain itself. It just spins, vast, cold, and mostly quiet. And yet, here you are, breathing, thinking, trying to figure out if any of this matters. Albert Camus, one of the most stylish existentialists in history, and possibly the only one who could make despair look good in a trench coat, offered us a response to this cosmic indifference, absurd heroism. Not the kind with swords and speeches, the kind with stubbornness, with dignity, and sometimes with a red nose. Let's try this. Imagine Sisyphus, the tragic Greek figure, doomed to push a boulder up a hill forever. But this time, he's wearing clown shoes. This isn't mockery. This is the core of absurd heroism. Coined and popularized by Camus, it isn't about winning or even understanding. It's about resisting the pull of despair with a stubborn, defiant grin. You see, Camus didn't look at the absurdity of life, the lack of clear meaning, the silence of the cosmos, and say, well, that's depressing. He said, that's freedom. The freedom to respond however you choose. And one of the boldest responses is to find humour in the chaos, to keep dancing even when the stage collapses. Imagine a clown juggling flaming pins in a crumbling circus. There's no audience left. The spotlight's flickering. The lion is asleep, but the clown keeps juggling. Not for applause, but because that's who he is. That's absurd heroism. You've probably lived a version of this. You've sent kind texts to people who didn't reply. You've shown up for work when the world felt like it was ending. You've cleaned the kitchen at midnight, even though no one thanked you. And you've laughed, actually laughed in moments when it would have been easier to scream. That's resistance. That's grace. That's philosophy in a red nose and oversized shoes. Absurdism says, the world doesn't owe you meaning, so you make your own. Absurd heroism says, the world doesn't clap when you do the right thing, so you do it anyway. This isn't about delusion, it's about style. It's about embracing the absurd with eyes wide open. You're not pretending the world makes sense. You're acknowledging that it doesn't, and still choosing to be kind, to be creative, to be human in the mess. Camus said we must imagine Sisyphus happy, but maybe we should imagine him laughing too, laughing at the absurdity of his task, laughing at himself, laughing because laughter is a kind of freedom too. And you? You get to decide how you juggle, whether you weep or whistle while carrying your personal boulders up your personal hills. Absurd heroism doesn't need approval. It doesn't seek reward. It looks life in the face, shrugs and says, all right then, let's go another round. Because the absurd clown isn't foolish. They're brave. They see the collapse and still commit to a pirouette. They're not immune to suffering. They're intimately familiar with it. But their rebellion is in how they carry it, with colour, with chaos, with defiant style. Look around. There are people rebuilding cities, raising kids, writing books, loving each other. Not because they believe it will fix the world, but because they know doing those things means something anyway. Meaning doesn't fall from the sky. It oozes out of our decisions. And what does that say about you? That in a world of collapsing certainty and echoing absurdity, you still choose to be kind, to be generous, to tell jokes and make soup and carry your friend's grief like it's just another juggling pin. It says you are not a bystander to life's nonsense. You're a performer. You're creating coherence where none was guaranteed. You're daring to wear joy like armour. So yes, the world may be ridiculous, but you're allowed to be ridiculous too. Purposefully, rebelliously ridiculous. Because in the face of absurdity, there's something deeply powerful in being the person who looks up and then honks a rubber nose. Maybe the universe won't applaud, but somewhere, someone might see your act and think, if they can keep juggling, maybe I can keep going too. And that's the secret. You're not just performing for yourself, you're keeping hope alive with balloons and banana peels and all the absurd grace of a clown who refuses to quit. Let's begin with a strange philosophical truth, eh? You will never truly know the full impact you've had on others. Not because you're unimportant, not because your actions go unnoticed, but because the nature of influence, real, quiet, world-altering influence, is that it happens in ways you almost never get to see. This idea echoes across philosophies from Levinas' concept of ethical responsibility to the other, to Simone Weil's reflections on selfless good. In a world driven by metrics, likes, and confirmation pings, it's radical to believe you can still matter even when no one is watching. But it's true, and it's necessary. Think of a lighthouse. It stands on a cliff, sending its beam into the dark. The ships that see that light and adjust course, they never report back. The lighthouse doesn't know which one's crashed and which one's made it safely home. It simply shines. You are that lighthouse. You may never know who read your message at 2:47 a.m. and felt a tiny bit less alone. You may never know who remembered the one time you showed patience when they were spiraling. You may never know how someone held on just one more day because you existed, and existed kindly. We've been taught to crave feedback, to measure our worth through applause. But real legacy isn't carved in trophies or follow accounts. It's built in the pauses, the half smiles, the decisions made quietly in your light. This isn't martyrdom, it's maturity. It's the deep, uncomfortable work of doing good, not to be seen, but because the good is worth doing. And yes, it's hard. It's deeply human to want to be acknowledged. That doesn't make you selfish. That makes you honest. But here's the shift. The more you become the kind of person who acts out of principle rather than performance, the freer you become. You're not a billboard. You're not an algorithm. You're not even a hero in someone else's redemption arc. You're just here, glowing. The truth is, the things that matter most often leave no trace. That hug you gave without realizing it was the first kind touch someone had felt in months. That time you didn't retaliate. That time you forgave. That time you stayed. No awards, no announcements, just you choosing to shine in the dark. You might think, but I want to know I mattered. You do, you already do. You just don't get to know the shape of your ripple. That's not your role. Let go of needing to witness your echo. Be the cause, not the observer. There's a quiet nobility in being the unseen hinge on someone's door of change, in being the whisper in the background of someone else's better decision, in being the light that turned a stranger's storm into something survivable. And here's the strange comfort. Some people do remember. They just don't know how to say it. Or they're gone. Or they're still learning how to love themselves because of something you once did. Legacy isn't what you know you've done. It's what you can't possibly know you've done. So shine. Shine ridiculously. Shine without feedback. Shine because the world needs it. The ships are watching. Even if you never see them steer. Even if they never wave back. You are the lighthouse. Keep going. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You've wandered through paradoxes, peered into caves, questioned your identity, and maybe even chuckled through some quiet existential dread. You've met clowns and lighthouses, fire and shadows, ants and toast. What a strange little journey, right? So where does that leave you? Where does it leave us? Philosophy won't give you tidy answers. It was never supposed to. At best, it offers good questions. Ones that rattle around your brain like pebbles in a jar long after the conversation's over. It offers stories, tools, perspectives. It challenges the script you were handed and gently whispers, you can write a different one. The real trick isn't mastering all the ideas, it's learning to live alongside them, to carry contradiction in your pocket and uncertainty in your lungs, to laugh anyway, to try anyway, to wake up tomorrow and brush your teeth and feed the cat and maybe, just maybe, try again to be a decent human in an indifferent universe. And here's the closing truth. You're already doing it. You've pondered who you are when everything changes. You've wrestled with control and let it go. You've stared into the absurd and winked. You've considered the weight of choices, the illusion of time, and the reality of doing good when no one claps. You've walked through the soft night of thought and come out with your humanity intact. There's no test at the end, no enlightenment badge, no secret club. Just you and whatever tiny light you carry forward. And that, friend, is more than enough. So carry your questions kindly. Wear your doubts like weather. Keep showing up, awkward, brave, and unfinished. The world needs more people like you. We all do.